We are officially live.
All right. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Can everyone hear me? Perfect. Senator Karen Lewis Young, do you have a question?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. Your hand was up. All right. So let me see who we have on here, because it's we just want to make sure we have a quorum. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Do we have a quorum?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we do. We have 11 members right now.
So who are we missing?
Still the same board.
All right. Well, we want to welcome everyone to the first delegation meeting of the 2025 legislative session. We were hoping this year to do these in person as the DLS building has finally been completed. However, the delegation rooms are not yet all equipped for live streaming, and we were hoping to have sort of a hybrid option where members could be in person, and then we would still be able to have folks from back home participate in our meetings. And then we were thrown a curveball with the pro forma sessions on Fridays. And so most folks are going home Thursday night to do constituent work on Fridays. So that being said, we're going to do virtual for the near future. And then if something dramatically changes, we'll obviously get everyone's input, and decide as a delegation whether we want to convert to in-person or hybrid options. So, but we got business to do today, so let's get to it. The first order of business, as it is every year, is real quick, I want to introduce our counsel, Katie Lee Cannon. She's the delegation attorney, so she's joined with us today, and we're happy to have her. So she'll have a busy year for us. The first order of business is the election of the presiding officers for the delegation. And we start off with the chair. So if there's any nominations for chair, we'll hear those.
Chair, I'd like to make a nomination.
I have, and so do I.
Okay. Go ahead, Senator Fulton.
I'd like to nominate Chairman Pippy for another year. I believe that he's done a very good job with his direction and handling constituent issues and across bipartisan lines. So with that, I would just like to move that you remain as chair.
Is it appropriate to second him now, or should I wait for other nominations?
We can do a nomination, a second, and then if there's another nomination and second, we can go through them both.
Okay, well, I second the nomination of Delegate Fulton, Senator Fulton.
Okay. I guess we're in the discussion phase. Senator Lewis Young?
Yes. I would like to nominate Delegate Ken Kerr as our delegation chair. There's a couple of reasons for that. A little bit of background. I have been in the General Assembly 11 sessions now. I consulted with my predecessor, who was here 4 years before me. And in those 15 years, we have never had the same leadership 2 years in a row, no less 3. There's a reason for that historical precedent. One is we like to give a variety of opportunity to various members of the delegation. Number 2, we like to get the perspective of people that serve on a variety of different committees. And number 3, we want to always ensure that part of our leadership has very close working relationships with the leadership in the General Assembly. So for that reason, I would like to nominate Delegate Ken Kerr as our chair, who also has a leadership position in the House, is well respected, and has strong credibility and access to General Assembly leadership.
Thank you, Senator. Is there a second for Delegate Kerr?
I second.
Okay. All right, so what we'll do, are there any other nominations from members? Okay. So what we'll do is we'll do the roll call for the first nomination second, and then we'll go to the second. So let me get my pen out here. And forgive me because it's early, so I'm going to try to go through it. Oh, here we go. Right, Trustee Andrew here. All right, so the first roll call is for the nomination of Delegate Pippy. There's a second. So Senator Fulton.
Aye.
Okay. Delegate Boucher.
Aye.
Okay. Delegate Siliberti is absent. Senator Court.
Point of order, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. I think that with the nomination, I think we do a roll call vote on the selection of the between the two nominees. So that we actually name the candidate of which we choose.
Yeah, no, I'm good with that. That makes sense. Okay. So I apologize. We'll start over. Senator Fulton, just I guess state your candidate vote, sir, please.
Delegate Pippy.
Okay. All right. Delegate Boucher.
Chair Pippy.
Siliberti is absent. Senator Quarterman.
Chair Pippy.
Delegate Fair.
Delegate Kerr.
Okay. Delegate Kerr.
I will vote for myself.
All right. Senator Karen Lewis Young.
Delegate Kerr.
Okay. Delegate Miller. She might be muted. Delegate Miller, are you muted? Okay. We'll come back to you. Senator Reedy. See him go. Okay. Delegate Rose.
Chair Pippy.
Okay. Delegate Simpson.
Chair Kerr, so he can hear that.
Okay. Delegate Tomlinson.
Delegate Pippy.
Okay. Delegate Valentine.
Delegate Pippy.
Okay. And I believe Delegate Wyvil is absent. 2, 3. Oh, and is Siliberti on now?
Like connecting.
Still connecting.
Okay.
You need to go back to Delegate Miller.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll give, this is connectivity issues. Delegate Miller, are you back with us or abstaining? Okay. All right. Well, the chair, Pippy, I guess I vote for myself. 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I believe it's at current 7-4. So
April's back.
okay. So April, you got a few seconds here if you want to chime in. If not, we're going to move on.
You're on mute, April Miller.
Okay. All right. So I appreciate the folks that voted for me to be back. And one of the suggestions I was going to have this year, per Senator Karen Lewis's point, was going to provide an opportunity for members of different districts to participate in drafting an agenda and then running a meeting. And I thought that would be an excellent way to have people have some equity in the delegation meetings. And so I look forward to reaching out to members from different districts and working with them so that everybody feels that they're contributing in a meaningful way and have an opportunity to share their concerns for their respective districts. And as always, it's the Frederick County delegation. We work together, and we will always do what's best for Frederick as a whole. So look forward to continually working with you guys. The next order of business is the nomination for vice chair. And we will open that up. And I'd like to nominate Senator Folden to continue serving in that role. So is there a second?
I'd like to second that nomination, Chair Pippy.
Okay. Are there any additional nominations or discussion?
I would like to nominate Delegate Ken Kerr as vice chair.
Okay. All right. Is there a second? Okay.
I will second that.
second.
Okay.
Pardon me, Delegate Boucher will second.
Okay. All right. So we'll, are there any additional nominations for vice chair? Okay. So as we did with the first election, we'll do the same. So Senator Folden, if you could state your candidate, sir.
I guess I'll say for Folden.
Okay. Delegate Boucher.
Delegate Kerr, please.
Okay. Delegate Siliberti. I think he's having technical difficulties. Senator Quarterman.
Senator Folden.
Okay. Delegate Fair.
Delegate Kerr.
Okay. Delegate Kerr.
Delegate Kerr.
All right. Senator Karen Lewis Young.
Delegate Kerr, and I'd also like to explain my vote. Having attended many District 3 events, I think it's really important to occasionally have some leadership representation at District 3 events. And Delegate Kerr has probably been one of the most consistent representatives at District 3 events. And I'd love to see that representation from leadership of the delegation. Also, if you look at our capital budget performance, both last year and this year, District 3 has done inordinately well. And it would be great to have somebody in leadership that has been part of that success represent the entire county. Thank you for that opportunity to explain my vote.
Thank you. Delegate Miller.
Yeah, sorry about earlier. Senator Folden.
Senator Reedy. All right. Delegate Rose.
Senator Folden.
Okay. Delegate Simpson.
Vice Chair Kerr, please.
Okay. Delegate Tomlinson.
Senator Folden.
Okay. Delegate Valentine.
Senator Folden.
Okay. And I think Wyville is absent. All right. And then I vote for Senator Folden. So let me count this up. 1, 2, 3. All right. So I believe that is 7-5 for Senator Folden. Senator Folden, did you want to make any remarks?
No, I just want to thank the support and look forward to moving together as a unified front. And I would like to point out that even under the current leadership that's been in there, District 3 has benefited quite handsomely. And I look forward to improving like what we saw yesterday with the budget or Wednesday with the release of the improvements being promised for Route 15, which is a big part of our community as a whole. So I've got to run in here to the VA, so I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you all later.
Thank you, Senator. So we do have a busy agenda today. I just wanted to open up with a couple of remarks. And one thing is for sure, and it's been alluded to already, that Frederick County fared very well in the budget, including our #1 priority, which was the Route 15 money was put back in for the upcoming 2028. So I think as a group, we have been very effective. I think, look, we're a bipartisan group. We represent diverse districts, 3 counties, 15 members, 4 legislative districts. But at the end of the day, we pass a lot of legislation. We secure a lot of funding for our county. And despite our differences occasionally, I think we do a pretty good job. And so I'm absolutely committed to doing my best to run a smooth meeting, to not waste your time, to be supportive when I can. And, I try to do my best to put our members first. And I think some of the members in District 3 know that, I reach out to them frequently and I talk with them, and I do my best to support everyone equally. So we'll continue in that fashion. That being said, we do have some bills to talk about this year. The first order of business, I just want to say, are we good with 9 a.m. on Fridays for the time being? Is everyone good with that time? All right. If you have any issues, just let us know. We know members are busy and have different things going on. Just keep us posted so that we can keep you updated. Usually what we do is when we have a bill that's ready, that's been developed by DLS, you have an LR number, we can put it on the agenda for discussion, and then we usually vote on it the next week. Occasionally, like today, we'll have bills that we've already discussed and voted out before. I will leave it up to you guys whether you want to skip the process of going in a debate and then waiting a full week to vote it out, or if you just want to vote it out. I think we can be flexible with things we've already seen before. But I won't jump the gun. We can make those calls. So let's get into it. The first bill on our list is the salon alcohol permit revisions. And for those of you that participated in the Liquor Board Forum and the delegation meeting, this was a simple fix to increase the ounce from 5 ounces to just above 6 so that our salons can provide a pre-manufactured little wine container that's very common in the industry. And that's literally what the bill says. So I'll open it up for any discussion. Delegate Kerr, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a bill that we spoke about at length during the interim. I think everyone understands the reasoning behind it, and so I would move favorable.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
I would second.
All right, Delegate Fair. Any discussion? All right, and Senator Karen Lewis Young, your hand is up. Is that a legacy hand? All right, it's gone now. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. We'll call a vote. All in favor of agreeing that this will be a delegation bill and that we will proceed forward with dropping it, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? All right, so all those being present, we will record in the affirmative, and I will convert that to a delegation bill and drop that. All right, so good job. The next bill, this one's a little more complicated. This is the beer and wine consumption permit revisions. And what this does is, I'll try to summarize quickly. In Frederick County, there are tastings that Class A liquor stores are currently allowed to provide. The problem is the configuration of those tastings. When you provide a beer, a wine, and a liquor, it gets convoluted. And so this legislation is supposed to just clarify that they can offer any amounts of those 3 things as long as it doesn't exceed a full drink, essentially, right? Because I think the thing now is that if a Class A store wanted to offer like X amount of 1 or 2 ounce things of wines, they can't do that. It's very regimented. I did notice an issue with the bill that it doesn't actually enable you to serve a full beer. So that was somehow changed. Don, do you want to, Don Sugars of the Liquor Board, do you want to chime in on that really briefly for the members? And then maybe we might have to table this one until next week.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
We got you. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we did reduce the reason for the not full beer any longer is because we did not want to exceed, like you had stated, we didn't want to get into alcoholic beverage, the ABV, and remember that was kind of discussed at one of our meetings. We didn't want to get into all that. We wanted to keep it very standard across the board that you can drink six ounces of any beer or wine in a combination, but you can never exceed the 6 ounces. That's a true tasting, not a full beer. And we removed that full beer out of there for that reason, that you don't want people walking around the store doing a tasting with a full beer. So it's really to give them those little flights of beer, wine, keep it in small quantities and true tasting amounts. 6 ounces would not exceed that. And then I thought the bill was well drafted, with even the liquor portion, that you even put that in there, that they couldn't exceed. If they tasted those other 2, they could only have a half ounce of liquor. So I thought it was well drafted, in my opinion, of how it was written. And the intention was to remove that full beer so that people aren't walking around with a full beer.
Yeah. Well, let me do this. Any members have some questions for Ms. Sugars?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, sir.
Dawn, when we were discussing this bill in the open forum back in, I think it was November, we did hear from members of the industry, but we haven't heard from them about this change. As you were in your discussions with them, what kind of feedback were you getting?
After the alcohol forum, there wasn't a whole lot of feedback as far as not agreeing with not having that full beer. Some people were shocked they even had that ability to do the full beer to walk around. And we had 2 stores out of 114 that had wanted this full beer years ago when we adjusted it before Delegate Pippi, but they don't use it. We come to find out, I don't want to call the specific 2 places out, but they come to find out they never did it. They put it in effect and they're like, we never had people walk around with full beers. We do have 1 store, again, out of 114, that used it as a tool to bring people in to have them walk around with a full beer. But other than that, no one had opposition. And we did put it back out, website, email blast, lots of communications back out to get feedback, and even ask them as we were talking to them in site inspections. And no one was opposed to keeping it very limited to a tasting.
Thank you, Don, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Boucher, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you, Ms. Sugars, for all the effort you put into this. As someone who's had their struggles with alcoholism, I like the fact that the language is changing from consumption to tasting. And more importantly, the changes in the consumption rates makes it a little bit more understandable for the business proprietary aspect of it on their end to understand, interpret this and enforcement and not be in violation. So I am in support of this. And I thank the Liquor Board for their effort in addressing the needs of the business owners on this issue. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So Don, my thought is this, and maybe you can provide some feedback. So we just voted to approve the wine change for salon and barbershops because the industry has shifted to these 6-ounce wine bottles. And we had only approved a standard glass up to 5 ounces, but given the industry, we're making an accommodation because of the realities of business. And then with this bill, we're now saying that we don't want Class A's to serve a full beer, and we're only allowing them to serve so many ounces of a beer. So, I mean, aren't we literally doing the opposite of what we just did with the salon bills, where we're kind of removing a full beer option, where a Class A store may have a beer in a can that they pour in a glass or what have you, and we're saying it has to be less than that. So they're kind of essentially they'd be getting rid of alcohol. They'd have to throw out alcohol, just like what was happening with the thing before, where someone could only serve 5 ounces out of that 6-ounce container, and they'd have to dispose of, the additional ounce in the, you know what I mean? I feel like it's the exact same thing to some extent.
I understand what you're pointing to, but a Class A establishment having on-premise consumption is completely different than a salon having an on-premise 1 limited serving. See, a salon can only serve that little wine bottle. That's it. There is no additional serving. And the same with if we lock down the tasting, and I say lock down, meaning making it more of a tasting and easier to understand. And a Class A was never intended to have any on-site consumption. We are not in Montgomery County that has that in some of their laws and things like that. And that was something that we wanted to, or at least the public wanted to steer away from in some fashion, that they didn't want Class A's to be the same as a restaurant, to have that on-premise full consumption. So when you paint a picture of someone walking around with a glass of wine or walking around with a full beer, it really created this, like, is this really what we're doing with a Class A establishment, which is normally not permitted any on-site consumption at all. The only on-site is a tasting of what the products they might want to purchase, which I feel is a complete different animal than the salon.
I got you. No, listen, and you make good points. I would just say this, and hopefully, and if any members want to do something different, we can. But to Delegate Kerr's point, I don't remember having this conversation in those public forums about, because it was already law that they could have 12 ounces in as a tasting before, and so that is a substantive change that. So I would really like to just get some feedback and maybe work offline with you about it, and then members can obviously reach out to you as well. Can we table this until next week? Is everyone okay with that? I don't know if we didn't have it on the agenda as a vote for today, so I think we're good. Don, I'm gonna reach out to you and we'll workshop this. And this is definitely, we're gonna move something this year on this issue so that the Class A's can move forward. I just want to address that 12-ounce deal for the.
And I do just want to make an additional point that there isn't very many, and we found this also. We did a survey. We also did a survey of all of the tasting endorsements, and not many of them taste beer anyway. It's mostly wine and liquor. So we did do a survey of all of our people that had a tasting endorsement, and there were 56 of them.
Okay, cool. All right. Thank you. All right. So the next item is, and I believe this was proposed by Senator Karen Lewis Young. Senator, did you want to introduce this bill that you put forward?
I'll give you the background, and I hope Ms. Sugars can join me in explaining why the language is crafted the way it is. So I was approached by Tad James from the Met. For those of you that are not familiar with the Met, it's a very small community theater across the street from the Weinberg Center for the Arts. It has maybe 30 to 40 seats, local actors and actresses, local directors, and even local authors. They serve beer and wine, but they wanted to do theme-related cocktails for the different shows. So if they were doing something in the autumn, it would be a pumpkin cocktail, or a mystery murder, it would be, a mystery cocktail. So, I mean, there's really no way to allow for a license for a theme-related cocktail or two. So we worked very closely with Ms. Sugars to find the appropriate language that would allow them to do that. And this is what you have before you.
Any questions from members? So is this, and this is either for Delegate or Senator Lewis Young or Don, is this modifies an existing theater license that we have in the county, right? Okay.
We are renumbering and actually creating, because we already have a theater license that does beer and wine only, and we have a magic theater that only wants to do beer and wine. He does not want to be forced into liquor this was crafted very well. I think these drafted bills have been very on target, and just a couple little tweaks of wording on president versus a manager kind of thing. But I think this is well written, and adding that additional layer to give the options for those small theaters to do that specialty drinks. I think it's well written.
So this is what we did for the stadium, the Key Stadium, is it not?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. I mean, that's really the only big change minus the licensee designation, but we're just adding liquor because a lot of these canned drinks that they serve at like Key Stadium now are technically classified as liquor. And okay. All right. Delegate Fair, go ahead, sir.
I was comfortable. I also did not like the word president, so I was going to, if appropriate, make a motion to support this legislation with the change of the word president to the appropriate title of the organization.
Okay. Do we want to just make the changes and then put it on the counter for a vote next week, or Senator Lewis Young?
Yeah, here's a recommended change. If you go to the second page of the legislation, line 16, the manager of the theater or any other official designated by the theater may sign the application for the license.
Okay. Well, why don't we can, Senator, are you okay with we get those changes and then in a draft, and then we can just put it on the table for a vote next week? Okay.
That's fine.
Okay. All right. Well, that way we can delegate fair and everybody can chime in and we'll get it right and we'll get it voted out. I don't see an issue with this bill personally. So, all right, cool. Well, we'll thank you, Don, Senator. Thank you. We'll move on. The next one is the bow hunting handgun open carry legislation. I think we heard this last year. I don't believe there's been any changes. I think they're adding just a zone that includes Frederick County. I'll introduce the bill just because I think Senator Fulton's not here. But basically, the language literally adds Frederick County or Washington County during hunting season. Look, not everyone's a hunter on this delegation call, but when you're in the woods and it's 6 in the morning and it's pitch black, there are bear and other animals that can pose a serious danger. I think being able to protect yourself is always important. What I love about Frederick County is that we have bear and a whole bunch of other things. And you read about it in the paper quite frequently where there are bear attacks. We had an issue with a woman at Dutch's daughter had to use bear spray on somebody. And I was thinking only in Frederick County would somebody defend themselves with bear spray. But Delegate Fair, go ahead, sir. Or Boucher, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to add to the dangers that you just enumerated here with the bear. There is a lot more wild coyotes running around in our woods now, and they're starting to pack up. And as someone who goes out in the woods in the middle of the night to go hunting, it is quite scary to come across wild dogs in the woods. Not only the bear, but we have the factor of packing up wild animals such as dogs in the woods now. So that's something to consider. Thank you.
Okay. Any other thoughts or questions about this bill? Do we need more time to digest? I know not everyone, voted. I don't believe everyone voted in favor of it last year, but I think we did vote it out of the delegation. Delegate Valentine, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to echo my colleague Delegate Boucher's comments, especially for those of us that reside on the northern portion of this county. The coyote problem is quite substantial up here. It's not just bear. I can be outside of my residence and I hear coyotes quite often throughout the year. So from a safety standpoint, I'm very much in favor of this.
Okay. All right. Senator Karen Lewis Young.
Thank you. I had two questions. I think you all have answered one. I wanted to know what hunters were protecting themselves from, but I did hear answers to that. My other question, and I might have asked this last time, is the DNR position. If I recall correctly, DNR does not have a position on this bill. I'm always a bit concerned about overriding something.
Senator, I think you froze up for a minute.
Okay, am I better now?
Yeah, and I think I think your concern was with DNR, and I did get a note here that says so DNR allows this already in Zone A, which is Garrett, Allegheny, and Western Washington. I think what this bill does, it adds Frederick, Northern Frederick into the zone. And what's great about our county is that it's very diverse, and anyone that goes up in Northern Frederick County, it's like a different world. It's beautiful, but it's rugged. And bears climb trees. I mean, you imagine sitting in your tree stand and a 400-pound black bear climbs up and sits next to you, Delegate Boucher. So it's a real deal. So with that, let's Delegate Fair, do you have a last
That's a
Well,
question. Just
yeah.
and it's a genuine question. If I'm reading the law correctly, it's that a bow hunter may carry a handgun specifically with them while they're bow hunting, and we're expanding that authority to Frederick County and Washington County. In your scenario that you outlined, I don't know a lot about hunting. I'll be the first to admit that. Is a handgun a sufficient weapon to use on an 800-pound black bear? Just asking for a friend.
Sure. Delegate Boucher, go ahead and answer that.
Yes, sir, it is, especially when you're bow hunting. It takes more time to string up the bow and shoot an arrow, and you're not able to shoot as much. I'll also like to kind of address what Senator Lewis Young had mentioned about handguns. Handguns are allowed to use in a lot of counties during rifle season. So it's something that DNR already allows during firearm season in certain counties. So it's not an anomaly for a hunter to have a handgun on them. But to date, they've restricted the use of having a handgun on you while you're out with a bow. But considering the change in the threats in the woods recently, it is in consideration of the safety of the hunter. The hunter would not be able to use the handgun to shoot a deer. That's what DNR's original worry was about, not having handguns on bow hunters. But under the situation, I think it would be applicable. Thank you.
Delegate Simpson for the final bite at the apple.
No bite. I just want to make clear that in District 3, we do have bears, and both Delegate Ken Kerr and I have had them in our yard, both in the front and in the back. So just wanted that clarification.
Okay. Well, Delegate Kerr has all those picnics in his backyard. That's why he probably has them in his. All right. Well, look, we voted on this last year. Unless somebody's really got a burning desire to table, I think we should just vote it and be done with it and move on. So with that, we'll entertain a motion on this bill.
Motion to approve the bill.
All right, Senator
Second.
Reedy,
Second.
Delegate Boucher, April Miller. Any discussion, further discussion? All right, so we'll just do this quick. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 For the record, those opposed, go ahead and state your vote. Are there any objections? Okay. All right, we'll move that out. Good job. We're moving forward. The next item is the credit gaming for volunteer fire departments. And I'm going to let Delegate Fair. Do you have an update on this bill? This was from last year, Delegate Fair. Do you want to chime in if you wouldn't mind, sir?
No, not at all. So we spent the interim having long discussions and about this legislation, and I want to thank Councilmember Carter for really his leadership in this effort to talk about this issue. Commercial gaming is a very hotly debated topic in Annapolis, which is one of the hangups for this legislation. I think every year the discussion of how and where we expand gaming and how it is expanded to allow for things like credit cards and expansion of different gaming-based services. We did have this kind of overarching question because in the state of Maryland, it is barred to use credit cards for gaming purposes anywhere in the state. And so we've had that verified multiple times with the exact line items in our existing statutory code that bars the use of credit cards. So we posited the question to the Attorney General's office. And I have to say, as a moment of personal privilege, just to thank my Chief of Staff, Camila, because she actually wrote the Attorney General's opinion and then asked them to verify if her reading of the law was correct. And they did. And so in your packet, you have essentially the opinion from the Attorney General that does show that if it is the will of the delegation, that the General Assembly can technically pass a bill that would allow credit cards in this capacity, if it is the will of the delegation and the will of the General Assembly to do so. They do opine in a few areas about the expansion of use of credit cards in gaming and the risks associated with that. But from a pure logistical standpoint, it is within our purview that we can move a bill forward and the General Assembly can consider that as an option.
Okay. Well, thank you, and particularly thank you to your staff for putting some work in on this bill and getting that clarification. I know that was a big discussion last year. Senator Karen Lewis Young? Senator, you're muted.
Yes, I just want to reiterate what you said and thank Delegate Fair and Camelia. You know, I always had mixed feelings about this. This is a bill I've always wanted to support because you want to support good nonprofit organizations, but I was concerned that there was illegal activity involved. So I really appreciate that we have clarification now. Thank you so much.
Senator Quarterman?
Thank you. And to echo Senator Young's comments there, I appreciate the clarification Delegate Fair got. I've never really understood the complication. I think, Chair Pippy, I sent you a picture after the last time we had this discussion because I stopped at a Sheetz on the way home after our meeting, and the big Maryland lottery machine has a credit card thing that you stick your credit card in to buy Maryland lottery tickets. So I don't understand the confusion. I appreciate that we got some written confirmation from the Attorney General, but this seems to be a practice that's been going on in the state of Maryland for quite some time.
Thank you, sir. Delegate Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Quarterman, I think those only accept debit cards. So I still think that credit cards are not legal to be used, but debit cards are. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I gotta find that picture. Maybe it's a you know, I don't know if I know a difference between a debit and a credit card. I don't know. One charges a fee, one doesn't. Who the heck knows these days, right?
A debit card's your own money. A credit card, you're borrowing money.
There you go. There you go. All right. Well, listen, we've debated this thing to death. I think the big hang up was always the getting an opinion. I think we have probably sufficient information on that issue. So with that, we can entertain a motion on this bill, what to do with it. So is there a motion?
So moved.
All right. So a motion to approve this as a delegation bill from Senator Quarterman. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Delegate Boucher. All right, all in favor of making this a delegation bill as we did last year, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed for the record? All right, hearing none. Another bill. Good. Well, I believe that moves us. We've moved through the agenda for today. So just some housekeeping stuff for members. Today is the final day to request legislation. So as that pertains to the delegation, if you have a bill that you would like the delegation to consider taking up, or even with a letter of support, you would need to request that legislation today to ensure that there's enough time to get it back to make the bill drop deadline. So keep that in mind. We put out the agendas every Wednesday. And so if you would like your bill on the agenda for the preceding Friday, just reach out to Andrew and we'll make sure we get it on there. And, you know, we look forward to supporting all members and having good discussion on all bills. I don't think there's any other housekeeping rules for today. I think generally the delegation only weighs in on things that are local issues. We try to avoid statewide issues. Every once in a while, we'll have an item kind of like the corrugated steel that has a really big impact in Frederick County that we've weighed in on before. You know, I think the county executive have a bill. I think there is a licensing bill related to off-track betting that we may weigh in on next week because we reached out from one of our local licenses about that, and I was going to talk to some members offline about that. But with that, are there any comments for the good of the order before we close up from any member? Delegate Kerr, go ahead, sir.
I fact-checked myself. I'm wrong. You can use the credit
See,
card.
it's good. Your conscience is clear for the weekend. It's great. Senator Karen Lewis Young, you have something, or is that a legacy hand?
Legacy hand, but I thank Delegate Kerr for his honesty and integrity.
Yeah. Well, look, we have a good group of folks. You know, we don't always agree, We represent different areas, but I do believe we have a good group of folks, and we'll have a very productive session, and we will do good work for the people of Frederick County this year, and that's what's most important. So with that, stay safe. We're supposed to get a little snow this weekend. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All right. All those in favor? All right. Have a great weekend.